Hi. Welcome to the Making Leader Moves podcast, the show that brings powerhouse Latinas together to discuss the moves they took to prioritize joy in their careers. My name is Paulette Pinero, your co host, and I'm here with badass co host Yovana Rosales.
Hola, hola. How's
Woo!
everyone doing?
So, today we have a great show for you. We'll be talking about perfectionism, and Giovanna and I are both recovering perfectionists with the powerhouse lideres from Level-Up Latina. They have an incredible podcast that you'll learn more about. They offer coaching and have an online community for Latinas. So, they got everything. So, welcome Cecilia, Irene, y Veronica.
Hola, hola, hola.
Hola.
Hola, so happy
Hi.
to be here with you ladies.
Excited to have you.
Yes. So, who wants to introduce themselves first?
We're gonna rock, paper, scissors it. Just kidding. No. I
Okay.
think let's go in alphabetical order.
Let's do it. Ceci, that would be you.
That would be that would be me. And with all these mute bikes, I finally figured out how to do it. But yeah, so I'm Cecilia Rodriguez. I go by Ceci. I'm a co-founder with Level-Up Latina and a career coach, and I'm also an attorney. I currently work for a nonprofit legal aid here in San Francisco, helping the elderly and disabled adults in 4 different areas of law. I live in San Francisco. I was born and raised in Hayward, California, which is in the East Bay. I'm a first generation Latina making leader moves con mis comadres, business partners, Vero and Irene. So thank you for having us.
That's going to be tough to follow because Ceci's incredible. And then you're going to have Vero. That's going to be even more incredible. But my name is Irene again. Irene Quevedo, proudly Quevedo. Born and raised in Inglewood, California, Southern California. Proud Mexican, but married a Guatemalan. So I got to throw that out there because it's important to him that I do so. He's a proud Central American. Vero and I have that in common. I'm a life coach,
Shout out
business
to our
coach.
Central Americans.
Yes, right. We love being in Central America. In fact, we've been to a lot of countries and my kids love it. But Guatemala, especially, people got to get out there. It's gorgeous. But yeah, life coach, business coach, super proud of this work. I also work with a nonprofit as their CEO, and moving that work forward really means a lot to me. So it's really great to do coaching in a lot of aspects of my life. I currently reside in Redondo Beach, California with my family, our dog, that total whole vibe. But I've got some amazing kids over here, one in high school, one in middle school, one elementary. Bananas, but it's exciting. Thank you for having us.
Oh, my son starts high school tomorrow, and I'm not okay. I took the whole day off today because my daughter started fourth grade and my son starts high school, and I need to see my therapist. I can't wait for Wednesday. So we'll talk outside of the recording for
Yes.
emotional support.
Yes.
Let's
you
not
got
start
it.
with the
You
waterworks,
got
you
it.
guys.
Right,
Okay?
Vero? Right?
Yes. So I'm Vero. I am also one of the 3 co-founders of Level-Up Latina. I'm one of the lucky ones to say I get to work with my really, really good friends that have seen me emerge from a young adult to the woman that I am today, have given me some of the best advice I could have ever asked for. So currently, outside of being a life and business coach, I am a full-time mama of a 1, 2, and 3-year-old. My 3-year-old empezó, or we could do bilingual here, right? We could jump into the Spanish. Okay.
Claro.
Perfecto. Because I sometimes that happens and I just want to make sure everything's okay. We need to translate, we will. But today was my daughter's first day of preschool. And outside of the cautious of, COVID and everything that's happening, we decided it's the best thing to do. She needs amiguitos and amiguitas and to get out and see different faces. So today was her first day of preschool. So when I say bring on the waterworks, ladies, I'm with you on it. And we sometimes have to let go, right? The perfectionist of having control, that part of us, we just, she's got to grow up, and it's not just mommy and our little environment. It's another bubble. So yeah, but I'm really happy to be here with you guys as well.
I'm not a mom, but I'm a full-time tia, and I had waterworks last week. I dropped them off. I dropped off my niece at kindergarten. I was like, this is it.
And she was very happy. I saw pictures and she was like, bye.
Oh yeah.
Like I got my backpack.
Yeah, she told me it was fine to leave her. Like, she's like, okay, have a good day. And I was like, I need to make sure you get in that building, girl.
She held your hand. She's like, Tia, are you going to be okay?
That auntie love is like beautiful. Like I didn't realize until I had my own kids that I love my nieces and nephews like if they were my own kids. Like I love them so much, but I couldn't understand until I had kids that like, yeah, I love them like that hard. Like where when they go to college, I cry. I want to be there with my sister for all those milestones, my brother's kids too. And it's like love is love, you know? So that first day of school, it hits. It hits if you are involved. Yeah, que la vecina, que la mamá, because it takes a village to raise the kids, right?
Yeah.
I say that all the time.
I was completely the opposite because I had nieces and nephews beforehand, and I was like, I love these kids so much, and like I get emotional too. Like last year with my oldest nephew who went to started high school, I was like crying at the graduation. So I remember like going into motherhood thinking like, how is the love gonna change? Like how is it gonna change because I love these kids so much, and how can I love more? Or is it different kind of love? So it was until I had my own, I was like, okay, it's different but the same. I don't know how to explain it, but it's like, I was just like, I was questioning myself, like, how, ¿cómo voy a querer estas niñas?
Mm-hmm.
Your own. Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah. So who here is a perfectionist? Ceci? Vero's like,
Recovering a little
I
from it.
quit perfectionism a long time ago. I'll tell you that.
yeah, I keep telling folks like, yeah, I'm a recovering perfectionist and I'm in recovery every single day. But so, oh, that's interesting, Vero. So tell me, when was the moment when you realized perfectionism wasn't for you or was holding you back?
I think the first time was definitely, I was young. And it was a constant comparison between myself and my sister. And nothing wrong against my sister, but I think you don't tell a young little girl that's striving to be told one thing, like you can do so much, y puedes, eres tan valiente, and you're so this, and then be told, ay, pórtate mejor, why aren't you more like your sister? Look, she does this. And she's like, in the sense, like painting this ideal image of the perfect Mexican American daughter, right? And it was a constant struggle for me. And I know I always describe myself as very rebellious. I started rebelling against my parents and then their rules, and not in the sense to just go against what they were saying, but because I felt that I wasn't that perfect image, that I was going to become this person that did not necessarily have to be what someone else was. And in this case, it was my sister. And, she kind of followed that role of the she was the oldest in our family. And, her ideal was like, my dream is to be a mom. I want to be a great mom. And then for me, I was like, I want to be a singer, dancer. I want to go do this. And I felt nothing was impossible. But I feel that it was a constant reminder, like, why aren't you more like her? Where I was like deviating more and far, far from it. That I felt I was not that. So I needed to be something else, not necessarily what I wanted wasn't perfect. It was just not what their idea of perfect was. And I couldn't fit that mold, and I had to just break through. So I was young. I was little. I was, maybe 6, 7 years old, and then kept being who I am till now. Well, maybe it's hurt me, maybe it's not, but I mean, I'm good where I'm at today.
Good. What about the rest of you?
When we started our business, when we started our business, it's funny because we would always kind of say to ourselves, progress, not perfection. Because if you're so hung up on perfection, like it would never be right. Like the website's not going to be right. The Instagram's not going to be right. The way we do our coaching won't be right. Like, let's move it along. And I'm proud of us because I think the three of us, regardless of where we were in our perfectionism stage, regardless of where that was, we found a way to coexist and use a little bit of each of us. So I know Ceci's going to segue into she can be more of a perfectionist, and Beto's like, not really. And I'm like, well, sort of in the middle, recovering. But I think that it helped our business.
I love
that we're in 3 different places, because I know that for me, it really changed when I became the CEO of my organization. I just knew there was no way that I wanted my staff to want to emulate perfection, because that was fake and false. And I would not have an authentic team. And I didn't want to be like falling apart at the seams, because that's not professionalism or poise or progress or all those other great P words, like being punctual, things that are good habits. I wanted them to have those habits, but I didn't want them to strive to be perfect, because I thought there was no such thing. But I wanted them to be professional. I wanted them to be on time for things and just treat their profession in a way that is respecting it. But, sometimes we fall apart, or sometimes it doesn't look perfect, or no matter how much you put into something, there's going to be life and mistakes, and things won't go right. And so you can't plan for everything. So I liked that balance. And I did it for me selfishly, like as a CEO. I wanted that balance of sort of like, we want to do things well. We don't want to half-ass anything, but we also want to give ourselves grace. And it was just so important to go through those years trying to find a happy medium of what perfection is, because it really cannot be totally found. But to try to strive for doing right by people and right by things, I think we've found some kind of balance. And it really helped, I think, with Level Up Latina for us to move along and be willing to make mistakes along the way.
How about you, Ceci?
I think for me, I'm the oldest in my family. So, first to go to college, first to everything, right? So I think for me, that's why not because my parents were pushing me, but I think for me, I wanted to take that role. Everything has to be perfect. My husband says everything has to be perfect. Like he'll say that to me because when he sees me kind of cleaning and everything has to be like in its place, everything has to be perfect, chula. He'll say that as a joke, but it's like I don't know. I think being the oldest, that's kind of like the role that I took. I had to go to college. I had to finish in 4 years. I had to, I wanted to go to law school. So being the box checker, right? And I think for the majority of my life, that helped me because I was disciplined, I was organized, and it was just it helped me navigate each new level that I was arriving at. So I think it helped me in that arena, kind of like getting to the goal, right, that I wanted career wise. But it also, your question was like, has it hindered you in any way? And I think yeah, because I take so much time in trying to perfect something, right? Sometimes it's like, just get it done, but it's like no, I want it perfect. I want this, brief to look perfect. I wanted to look, nice, and I want when I send out a rough draft, I want it to look super super good. And hindering in the fact that sometimes it takes me longer because I'm spending way more time that I need to. So I would say that's the hindering. But I think through the process, I've also learned kind of like a little bit what Irene was saying, that perfectionism does not perfectionist does not mean professionalism, because you could be professional still, and it doesn't have to look perfect, right? And I know we've learned that a lot, especially in this past year, with everything being via Zoom, and sometimes we have technical difficulties, but we show up, right? We're professional, we prepare, and we're professional, and it doesn't have to look perfect. So I think that's something that I've definitely learned along the way, that not everything will be perfect, and it's going to be okay.
I love that. And I can totally resonate with Ceci because I as well am firstborn, first
me too.
generation, especially in my immediate family, only one to graduate, only one to go to college. And like same thing, I had amazing support from my family, but they never put that list of expectations. I think it was just me because of feeling all of the outside pressure, all the pressure, even within my own community, right? They're always like, tienes que ayudar a los demás, o los que no tienen, acceso to all these resources. And you're like, yeah, I have to be the savior. But I think with all that perfectionism, it weighs on you so heavy. And that's when you start breaking, right? Whether it's burnout or whether it's perfectionism at its finest. And I can relate to, especially when you're talking about rough drafts. Like I used to be the person who used to write an email and go over it 5 times before even sending it out. And then at one point, actually I was reading this book that Paulette had recommended to me called Brave, Not Perfect. And like she talks about how much energy you waste, like not only time, but energy. And it was so true. I was like, okay, now it looks like I can't perform at my job because I'm like, using up all this time, or all of a sudden I'm working OT, but you're not. It's just that you're trying to catch up because again, you're reading these drafts over and over. And so now, like as a recovering perfectionist, I read it once, like I'll write it, whether I'm thinking about it in Spanish or in English, I write it. Then I edit it and I'm like, you know what? That's it. Like I'm doing it once for grammatical errors and lo mando, and they'll get the gist of it. And if there's a grammatical error, they'll survive. It's not a big deal. So, but that takes time and that takes practice. So I'm rooting for you. I'm rooting for you to not do it as much.
We're here for you.
We're here for you.
The funny thing is that as Latinas, we go through that. I know a lot of the clients I've worked with has been the situation where the case has been that they're like, one of my clients is like, I want to buy a house. I can give back to my parents. I want to be able to do this with my parents, for my parents. And I'm like, well, have you asked your parents if this is what they wanted? Have you talked to your parents about this? And two of them that had this very like pressure, like felt the pressure of having or wanting to give back. They had that sit down with their parents. Were like, look, I feel that I want to give back, and you've made so many sacrifices. And the parents are like, no, 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 no. Like, we did all that from our end because we wanted the best for you, right? We made those sacrifices because we had to, not because we wanted you to pay us back later. And I feel that it really helps us get rid of what other expectations are. Like, we project their expectations onto ourselves, right? It's just all these projections are like, well, my parents want me to give back. My parents, they've done so much for me. It's otra cosa que te nazca to give back, but don't feel like it's the pressure that's what your parents want you to do. And I feel that once they communicated that, or once we communicate with those people that have brought upon those expectations on us, it makes things like so much easier to just keep moving. Like, okay, then I don't have to do all this work. I don't have to do all this unless I want to. I want to do this. And then, you make your plan for it. But I think it's constantly the expectations that we're constantly trying to strive for.
And to go further on that point, Vero, like you guys all kind of touched on like upbringing and family. I'm also the baby in my family, and there was also a lot of comparison in my family that kind of creates that need for perfectionism. But also to me, it was like my mom always saw other families as having it together and other families as being perfect. And like our family was the broken one, and we had to be better. We had to be better. So it was this pressure to like have it all together, even though you don't, which is really deadly and scary for families because I think you're not connected or united even. And so whenever I've gone through some hard times in my life, like my family's the last one that I would turn to because like, well, I have to have it all together. Like I'm the one that went to college. I'm first gen. I make decent money compared to other people. Like I have to have it all together. And I've had to learn through life. Like, no, like sometimes I just needed my freaking mom. You know, I just needed my mom, and she's like the last person I would say, like, my husband's driving me crazy. You know, how lonely, like you want to go to your mom. But because there was all this judgment and negativity and comparison to having to have it all together, it's like you don't turn to your family, which is so sad. You know, like I have one sister, and I would love to not have this weirdness between us about being really honest and vulnerable. Because like, what's the opposite, right? Sometimes I think the opposite of being perfect is being vulnerable and honest and just like raw. But if it's not totally allowed and we don't know why, it's very lonely. I think it's very, very lonely because you're just kind of navigating it, trying to look a certain way.
Yeah, that's why you have to just break through and talk. Like, yo soy así. I'm like, you know what? I need help too. You know, like, and I would always try to make, we always try, like Latinas, we're like that. We keep this very strong face front. You know, we're like, no, we're somos mujeres fuertes. And, you know, you stay strong instead of like, girl, you need a hug. I'm sending you a hug. Like, you know, we say good vibes, but it's like, no, do you really need, if you need to cry, cry. We were just talking about waterworks. Like, it is what it is, right? And it also is what we make of it. So for me, I was just like, I'm done as constantly being seen as like the strong one, y que me vale, like, because sí me importa. I do have fucks to give. Sorry if I just dropped an F-bomb.
No,
But
love
like,
it.
I do. And in this case, it came from like my nieces. They were growing up. I became a tia at 11 years old, you know, who became, you know, I didn't know how to be a tia. And so I learned to become an aunt little by little. And now that they're older, they're like, yeah, it's okay. Like, this is when I got pregnant, not being married, you know, he is my husband now. You know, he was going to be my baby daddy, co-parent, but then now he is my husband. We have a family. You know, we established a home, which worked out. But that wasn't the plan. Originally, I was okay with like, okay, I'm good with being a single mom. I am like financially stable. I own my home. I had all these things like where I felt comfortable that I can make this decision despite what anybody else wanted from me, right? My parents were always like, cásate. Pobremente, pero cásate. It doesn't matter how much, you know, I'm like, money doesn't matter, Dad. Like, what matters is that you have a supportive partner, that the person that's in your life wants to be in your life, and all these things, and that you're able to have communication, blah, blah, blah. All that goes into relationships, right? But it got to a point where I was like, just feeling like, it takes a toll on also being that rebel, right? And it takes a toll on being that strong person. And one day, one of my nieces, the youngest one, she's like, are you okay? And I'm like, yeah, I'm fine. I'm totally fine. And she's like, it seems like you need a hug. Like, you're just giving off, like, you just need a hug. And she goes, it's okay, tia, to not have it, like, to not be the strong one. You don't have to pretend you don't have feelings. And I looked at her and I just bawled, dude. Cried. And I was like, how did you know? And I was just so tired of like being this person, you know, because siempre fregan, you know, like, you're always fighting for something and this and that, and going contra la corriente, because you're just like, you see everything that's wrong and you want to right it. You want to, you know, you see everything that's going bad around you. Like, Yovana pointed out earlier, like, I'm going to be the resource. I'm going to be this. But it starts like taking a toll on you because you spread yourself so thin. And then it's like, do I have feelings? I do. Show them. And being vulnerable is so hard, especially as a woman and being Latina, expected to be fierce and strong and so decidida. So that was
And
my tipping
fiery.
point.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
like you have to be fiery and powerful in this, and like it is entrepreneur, oof, todavía, porque you need to compete with men and other women. And it's like, pero, si ya la sociedad is trying to kill me, you know? And I read, like, I get it. I live, all my family lives in Puerto Rico. So it's just me and my husband and our two kids here in Massachusetts. My sister in law with her family. It's around 40 minutes away. And we love her and we, spend time with her, but they have their own life and they have family around. And my husband is very close to his family, but because I was raised in that environment where it's like, ¿qué es lo próximo? I got pregnant at 19. I got my son at 20, got my first divorce by 23. And I was constantly failing for my family. I graduated, I went to college and I tried and I went part time and I finished my bachelor's degree at 28. And for my family, even though I was growing, I had great jobs and a great salary and building stability for my kids and my family, found a partner that I love. It was la cuera esta. Like, every mistake that could possibly be made, I made. So a way to protect myself was, I'm strong, and the sarcasm, and I don't care, and I don't need anyone, and it's like, we have an episode about hustle culture, but like that's also how it felt. Like I have to like impress people, and you were talking about growth personally, and I see this a lot with career growth, where we feel like career growth and development is a ladder. That shit's lonely, because en ese step, yeah, en ese step, it's only one person fits. When it's a ladder, you can't bring your girls, you can't bring your network. It's just you, because it's only you working towards that perfection that is for other people. When you get out of that, and when you are feel comfortable with being emotional, when you prioritize your joy, what you want for your life, then it goes from being a ladder to creating a path. And on a path, you can bring your crew. In a path, you can build your network. In a path, you can fall and keep moving. In a path, you can find different ways to achieve your goals, whether it's being the CEO or the business owner, or growing in your career, maybe in the same role or at the same level, but new responsibilities, new challenges, new projects, filling up your bucket somewhere else. It once you stop focusing on what, because I feel that perfectionism comes with that, with, it's not just about us, it's also about other people's perceptions of what we do. And that, that's something that I myself had to work on through therapy, because I didn't have the tools to do it by myself.
So,
And
so what I'm hearing, Paulette, right, is that you have found some pretty awesome kick-ass tools to help you succeed, right, and to help you
mhm,
thrive. And so now my question goes to the rest of our Latina amigas here are, what are some of the solutions that you have come up with to thrive in your career or business? I know Vero was talking a lot about open communication, and I agree, communication is key. And then we should definitely have an episode of just communication alone. But what are some
yeah.
other tools and resources that you ladies have used to help you thrive?
I think I just a little bit more on that note, because I think you're going to do a whole show and it's going to be great. But in this world of social media, I think it's a slippery slope, because it is the perfection epitome, because it's just people's highlight reel. So for instance, for someone who is like me, I love social media. I've always loved it. I always put plenty on it. I don't have a lot of different platforms, so I'd probably throw up on all of them. So it's like Instagram is my scrapbook. So I put a lot on Instagram. And I think that gives off this idea that everybody knows what's going on with me. Well, they only know my highlight and it's only positive things. If you really know me, and it's just a few people that really know me, it's like that's just this tiny, tiny percent of who I am. And it just adds to this weird communication. It's this weird, like, people think they know what I'm putting out into the world based on my social media, but really know nothing about me. So we had this get together with our friends, all us girls, and we had like 5 other friends there. We were all in Palm Springs a couple weekends ago, and it was really nice. It was like a bonding night, but I got there late. I wasn't there on the bonding night. And they had this question that they posed to the group. And the question was like, tell us about your life, since we've last gotten together in the last 20 years since college in 1 minute. And it was great the day that I got there because everybody was like giving their recap about their 1 minute. And I asked about people's 1 minute. And I heard about how some people took way more than a minute because, man, they needed it. And it was like beautiful, right? This bonding was beautiful. And I waited all weekend for somebody to ask me about my life in a minute. And it never happened. And I don't mean that with ego. I mean that with like, it must be very obvious that my life is what's on social media. So there's nothing beyond it. And I know the 2 women here, they get enough of my life every day and know me so well that they're not going to ask. So I came back thinking like, wow, that's powerful if you think about it. Like the tool would be then to don't internalize when you don't understand what's going on with the world, because that's what happened to me. Like I was like, oh, I could be really offended that nobody actually asked me the question, but no, you can't internalize what's happening with the world. We don't know anybody's world, right? But B, it felt to me that maybe people think they know my world. So what I need to do, the tool is I need to over communicate when I feel those things. So reach out to my friends and say, hey, do you want to know about my 1 minute? As crazy as that might sound, but it means
I was about to say that, Irene.
to share
like,
it.
Like, Irene, come on, girl. Are you gonna do?
Yeah, like I'm gonna study my 1 minute all year, and next year's reunion it's gonna be like perfect. No, I'm kidding. It's not gonna be perfect. But the point is that when you feel whatever you feel, like my God, for communication's sake, like put it out there. Put it out there. Find the tools. I mean, the way we were raised has a lot to do with it. Just the social media facade has a lot to do with it, but it keeps us from saying what we feel when we need it the most. And Vero gave an example of that. We've given examples about that at work, that we come across one way at work if we're trying to be perfect, but that's not it, right, Yovana? Like, it's not it. You just wanted to have the perfect event, the perfect email. For me, it's like, I felt like, hey, I wanted my friends to genuinely connect with me, like ask me about me in a way that's deep, not in a way that's like shallow, because we have that on social media. But when you need what you need, ask for it. Ask for help. We're like the proponents for that in Level-Up Latina. Like, ask for help. We're not trained to ask for help. Therapy, Paulette brought up, is magical. It's another one of the tools. So asking for help, saying what you need, specifically say what you need, put yourself out there, take up that space. So for those that are catching this, like think about that 1 minute. Like that 1 minute where someone says, share your life with me in 1 minute. Like that's you taking up the space to get what you need. And if you need a lot more than a minute, go to therapy. That's the other point.
I think you're going to say, take more than the minute if they ask you. Sometimes that's what you need, right? To just be asked. Yeah. I think for me, I've reached out. I've done the therapy. I don't want to label it I've done therapy, and it was one of those, I've never imagined myself going to therapy, but I was always very open to it. I wanted to be a psychotherapist. I wanted to be a psychiatrist. And then I thought maybe med school wasn't for me. Not thought, but I knew med school wasn't for me. That wasn't what I wanted to do at the end of the day. But like Irene mentioned, the asking for help, and then going to the people that know, the experts, like really knowing like, hey, you know what? I'm ready for the next move in my life or my career in this case. And going to the people that can prepare you for that. I worked for a long time in the rental car industry, and then transitioned into just the car industry for later parts of my corporate career. And it's very male dominated. And the thing is that the people that are going to be, you're going to find the women that are out there that are starting to pave the road for you. And, you can reach out to them and ask them for help and guidance. We recently had a conversation and a podcast about our mentors and our champions. And I spoke about Lakeisha Harvey, who was one of the main women that just like really provided that support, the professionalism, because I didn't have anyone else to turn to. And she was like, girl, let me tell you how it is. And this is what, and she's like, I like how you are. You're such, you're so like, you're so different than everybody else, but we have to kind of mold you into being able to get what you want when you ask, not just like, here comes this girl that thinks she knows it all and expects me to just give her what she needs because she knows it all. So with the way of presenting your words, how people are going to perceive your message and all of that. So really cleaning me up as a professional. But I've learned to also ask the men that are there. So at one point in my career, I was already in management. And I wanted that next position. And the economy had just gone really bad. And this is before 2008. So we're having some hardship, right, in 2007, 2006, 2007. And I knew that my next step was to go from a branch manager of the rental car business, to the area manager. I wanted to be in charge of multiple offices and run a big team. And I'm like, I know I could do it. So I had to reach out to the men. And they were like, are you serious? But the economy is rough. Like, what's the point of learning right now if there's no promotions available? And I go, because when the time comes, I want to be ready. And they were like, okay. So at first it was kind of like the fact that there would no openings will be available soon. They kind of put me off for a bit. But since I kept asking and kept asking and kept asking, it came to the point where they're like, she's not giving up. Let's start having these weekly meetings with her. Let's start having her understand what it takes to be an area manager. What will that interview look like when she meets in front of the regional directors and the regional presidents? Like, how can she present herself? And these are all men that are in those positions, right? So for me, I'm like, I'm gonna get a yes, and I'm gonna be persistent, and I'm gonna be resilient, right? And I'm gonna just keep going until they teach me how, and and be relentless. Yes, Irene, and we've had asked a question about being relentless, and I was very relentless because I wanted my growth. No one else can want it more than you. And I knew, we talk about having leadership qualities. It's one thing to be, have these qualities and not be able to develop them. But when you ask for the help and ask for the guidance and really challenge the people that are in those positions to guide you through that, because I didn't have many people to look to for that guidance.
Mm-hmm.
So I had to demand it from them and ask it of them. And until they were like, okay, she's serious. Let's give her some time then. Then you really just had to be very relentless and persistent with wanting that growth. So you have to want it more than anybody else.
Are you saying you have to level up? Latina?
Yes.
By all means necessary, use the tool.
Yes. And it's gonna get lonely. But we got to do it. We have to just really do it. Yeah.
And sometimes it's scary too, because you leave a lot of, your past behind, or your present that becomes your past, right? Like, you leave some primos behind, you leave some amigas, since high school behind. And it's sad, but that's what it takes sometimes to level up. And that's okay too, because everyone has different phases of life. So love to hear the tools. Ceci, what about you?
I think for me was learning to set boundaries and ask for help. So, I know we got to that point, like, ask for help. I think early on in my career, I didn't. I was so used to, I was a legal assistant, right? So I was like, I had a lot of little, deadlines and things like that. So I became an attorney in the same firm, and I was like holding on to all of that still because I was scared to give it up because I knew how to do it already. And then second of all, I don't know, I think also because the way we're brought up, like, we can handle it, somos chingonas. I think that too played into that. And it took a while, right, for me to learn how to, one, ask for help, and then second, like, set those boundaries. Like, don't say yes to everything. Don't overcommit yourself, right? And the turning point for me was, it really, when, like, the light switched, was when I became a mom. I always was proud of the long hours that I was putting into that private firm. And I always thought I was going to, be there, one law firm. And I thought, I glorified that. Like, oh my God, that's so cool. Que chingona. They're going to, maybe I'm going to be on the partner track one day. I thought that was for me. And the turning point was when I became a mom. I remember, as we were planning to have babies, whatnot, my husband was like, well, you think you would take time off, to be a mom? And I said, no, why would I do that? I'm going to be able to handle it. But little did I know that, one, I was going to have twins. And second of all, that it was going to switch for me, right? It wasn't all about my career anymore. It was like my family, my girls. I wasn't thriving in my career anymore. I was like tired. I was dreading, like, my drive into the office. I was just dreading. I'm like, oh my God. And at the end of the day, I would get home, and most of the time my babies were asleep already. So I was missing out. So I think I was like, okay, I need to figure out what it is that I want to do, because I'm not loving my career as much as I was loving it. So after a tough conversation with, like, my boss at the time, and then my husband, how are we going to make this work? And I decided that I was going to take some time off to, just be a mom. And that's the time that Level-Up Latina was born. But at that point, I was like a full-time mom and doing all these activities, but I was also building this business with Vero and Irene. And to me, that wasn't work. It was something that really thrived me, or that I felt that I was thriving right at. And when it came time, like the beginning of this year, when me going back to work or going back to practicing law, I really wanted to, have those boundaries where like I can manage both, right? Because it's two jobs essentially, but I wanted to have the flexibility at my, practicing law where I can still coach women and do all of this. And I think that's what I'm doing, going forward. Like, okay, I'm setting boundaries. What is my week going to look like? Okay, what are my commitments with Level-Up Latina? What are my work commitments? Do I have any deadlines? And I feel so good. Like, I feel good. I
Yay.
don't have that like dreading feeling. I get overwhelmed with the mess in my bed, on my bed right now. I'm looking at it, but work wise, I'm like, all right, I got this. So I think that was kind of what I learned, setting those boundaries and being okay with those boundaries, asking for help, and being okay with saying no.
The
Love
why of your goals changed. And
Mm-hmm,
it's
mm-hmm.
sometimes part of
Exactly.
perfectionism tendencies is like we feel like the goal that we set at another phase of our life, that's the ultimate goal, and it can change. And it can, because life changes, we change, our situations, our circumstances, or because no sale del forro and we don't want to do it anymore.
And
So,
that's okay, right? Those things are
and that's okay.
okay. Yeah. I
That's
think that
okay.
the perfectionist can keep us. Like, I mean, how can it help us, and how does it help us, or help us or hurt us, right? And
Mhm.
many times we're like, we think of the perfect idea, the perfect situation, the perfect circumstance. You're in the career you love, but sometimes you're just like, I don't know if I want to do this anymore, but I have to do it just because it's what I was meant to do, or what people want me to do. And we don't see that we can pivot that, and we can
Mhm.
change it, because we're just so stuck on one thing. But
Yeah.
we're changing people. We got to change with everything, and allow ourselves grace, like Irene said. When we come to the point where we're like, I don't know if I want to do this anymore, like, why force ourselves? I think a lot of us stay stuck in things just because of this idea that that's how it's supposed to be. Oh, it's just really hard, being a grown up, a mom, and a professional, and my job is just difficult. No, if it feels like it's difficult, then maybe it's not where you should be anymore. And that is okay.
Yeah. Irene, one of the things that you talked about when you were sharing that story about the retreat and folks not asking you about what was new in your life because of this perception of your life on social media. One of the things that I have encountered, not only myself as someone who uses social media, of seeing these, people that were like they're perfect or they have everything figured out. And one of the things that Yovana and I want to do with this podcast is demystify that leadership needs to look a certain way, or that being powerful means doing things with A, B, and C. So I want to ask the three of you, what is one thing that you continue to work on yourself and your leadership?
I love that question. I love it because you said like this ABC, and life is not like that. And I love demystifying that idea. And in my leadership, I'm always trying to emulate that it doesn't have to look like the stereotype. It doesn't have to look like what the senior leader thinks it looks like, or your own mama thinks it looks like. Like, I have always felt like if I'm misunderstood, but I'm happy, it's okay. Like, just stay misunderstood, because I'm happy and I know the vision and I know the course. And I always think results speak for themselves ultimately. So at least you can lay your head on night and say, okay, maybe there's all these other agendas and I should move all these other ways, but these are my results so far. They make me happy. I like the outcome of how I'm choosing to live my life, right? So in leadership, that looks like when you have a staff that wants to go in a million directions, or a board or a team? Like, do you know the vision and why? Do you have a strategy? Can you stand by that strategy even if you're misunderstood, trying to bring up, about that strategy? If so, then stay the course. And you're not going to be everybody's best friend. You're not going to be understood. You may be judged. It then gets very lonely. That's in leadership. But we're also leaders in our families. So in my family, like, I have the life that I have because I'm very intentional about the things that are important to me. And so we were raised to think that, divorce is bad, for instance. And there's nothing bad with divorce. Now I have divorced siblings and I'm glad that they broke through. And I'd rather they be misunderstood and happy than freaking miserable and together, right? And in my family too, the idea that like everyone must be a homeowner. Like, I can be a homeowner without living in a home. Like, I can just invest. I can rent if I choose to my whole life, but live in the city that I want to live in. And like, my mom finds that like crazy, right? Like, why would you do that? And it's because she knows that in my life, I spend my money investing in things that matter to me. And she may not understand those. Like, she's never going to understand stocks, for example. But that doesn't mean I shouldn't do it. Just stay misunderstood. She'll never understand why I spend so much money traveling. But that means I shouldn't do it. Like, it feeds my soul. It's what I'm all about. My husband and I are on the same page with these things. But again, being raised Latinita, it's like, I care that my family will talk shit about the way I live my life, right? And I'm trying not to. Try not to. It takes such backbone and courage is my point. That whole A, B, and C, Paulette, like, for you in your life, whoever's listening to this, watching this, your life may be A, a little bit of E, some of G. Like, you didn't get the B, the C, the D. It's okay. And I want everybody to be okay with that. But are you happy with the things you have? Are you happy with the life you're living? Does it bring you joy? You all are talking about like finding that joy and having the joy. It took me years to understand, like, I've built a life I've built because it brings me joy. And my mom doesn't need to understand. My staff doesn't need to understand. My whatever it is, wherever there's conflict, as long as I'm doing the right thing, right? And I'm in integrity and I'm living a good life and I'm being a responsible, good person and contributing. I think embracing being misunderstood is key.
How about the rest of you?
I wasn't sure if Ceci was gonna go because Irene and I nos gusta conversar bastante.
Yes, no.
we don't want to. We want to make sure we share the space equally. Ceci, you want to take it away?
I'm still thinking about it, so go ahead.
Okay, if you insist. I'm just kidding. No, I think for me it's been definitely one of those things where like, what are my values, right? What do I believe in? What have I always seen myself? Like, how to envision me in my life, and the people around me. And I've always stuck to that. It's like, if it feels good in my gut, I'm going to push through. A lot of times we push through and we do things as leaders because we think that the organization we work with is what they want. And it's kind of like a constant, thing that we're talking about throughout this whole conversation, but it's really like, what are your values? And your values go hand in hand in your professional life and in your personal life. And in this case for me, like, it's always been like, well, what is it? I always envisioned what I wanted my life to be. And I knew it wasn't going to be linear. I knew it wasn't what a lot of people envisioned for themselves. But I always feel like, I was very gung-ho about like being, being professional and sticking to my career. But I knew, I'm like, you know what, at one point, if I end up having kids, I would want to stay home. And that was like, because I knew that one of my values is family. And one of my values is creating that, having those, being present with my children as they're going through it. But I don't judge anybody else about it because it's how I want to live my life. And at this point, I'm stepping back from my career. I'm still leveling up and working with mujeres, like coaching them constantly on a daily basis, with Level-Up Latina, and we bring out a podcast. But at the end of the day, like right now, my role is, mom. My role is mom, wife, and creating this environment for my children to kind of pick my brain. And sometimes they annoy me and sometimes they don't. But it's like being okay with your story. I feel that when we're working or when we're at home, it's still a job, right? Whatever we do, it has to feel right. So find the shade, find the comfort, and get comfortable, Paulette. There you go. I'm like sweating for you. I see the sun
in more
on
ways
you. And I'm
than
like,
one. She's like, find the shade, find the comfort in more ways than one. I thought you were talking about you as a mama. You talking about
no, and I was doing that, and along with Paulette, like guiding her with my words, and like, but it's like, I just think you have to be okay with where you're at, in the sense of like, not everyone has to be, the professional and be the mom and this. It's like, it's hard doing all of those. And some of us are, Not that we're not better at managing than others, and some of us are, and some of us just choose like, this part of my life, I want to do this, but you have to be okay with that. So sticking true to who you are, sticking true, like being authentic, I think has really helped me both in my personal life and in my professional in the professional life of mine as well. And that's hard to stick to who you are and what it's in your gut and being really truly authentic in every aspect.
Ditto, being authentic. I think, yes, I've been authentic, I think, toda mi vida, more so today, now, currently. I couldn't remember this phrase that I say a lot. I say it a lot, and I couldn't remember. I'm like, sacúdate, sacúdate. I was like, what? And then Irene reminded me. I say que se te resbale, right? So don't hang on to things. If tú vive tu vida, and whatever works with you. If you're disciplined and you like to have routines, good for you. That's me. And if you just kind of like to kind of go with the flow también, y si la gente te va a criticar, que se te resbale, you do you. I know for me, I like to have routines. That's what's worked for me my entire life, and that's what works now. I worked with my daughters. Yeah, on the weekends we fall out of the routine, and then and that's okay. I feel like I want to say every other weekend, like I'll have one weekend where I'm doing a lot, and then Monday I'm like, oh my God, I'm so tired. But then I'll have a weekend where, I plan everything, how the week is going to look. And then on Sundays, I write into my agenda. So then Monday, it's like, I'm ready, like, hit me with it. And then I'm ready for it. So I think that's what's worked for me. And I'm going to continue doing that, knowing that it's okay sometimes to let go of that routine, like I did yesterday. I slept in and it felt good, and I was just in my pajamas like most of the day, and then I'm like, oh, the house is a mess. I'm like, you know what, it's okay, whatever, I'll figure it out throughout the week. But then I like get up and get this crazy idea. I'm like, oh my God, I'm gonna make some barbacoa. Yeah, let's make some barbacoa. And I created this delicious meal, lots of it, so that I can have Monday, right, dinner ready. And then I was like, oh my God, this would taste delicious with like tortillas recién hechas. And I used to be the person that
this meal was perfection.
¿Dónde quedamos?
No, I used to say like, I'm never gonna make tortillas a mano, never, 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 never. And Vero and Irene are witness to that. I used to say that, and then the pandemic hit, and I was like, oh well, I got it into it. But now one of my daughters loves it, so I'm like, Paula, vente. And so I got her in the kitchen. She was like making the tortillas for me, and I was just, cooking them. So it worked out.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I guess like at the end of the day, it's almost taking a look in and trying to figure for yourself, what does leadership mean and how can you take those steps? And like for me, right, I'm an older millennial, so I was kind of given this cookie cutter of like, he needs to look white. You need to be in a business suit. Your hair needs to be straight. You need to have natural maquillaje. You need to be maximum 90 pounds. Like I had all of this idea of what it meant.
I didn't check any of that, right?
Failed.
I failed your test.
I've always minimum been a size 8 at best. Like I couldn't like capture anything of that. But right, like once you find your community and once you find your people, you start breaking the mold. You're like, you know what? That isn't what leadership is. That's nothing but aesthetics. Like it takes patience, it takes empathy, it takes authenticity. But even that takes a while. And then I'm, the community director within our community. And I just can't be out here, singing all these praises. Like I need to do the actions too. If I'm a leader, I have to do it. So if I'm telling you, mija, drink your water or eat, like that's serious. Like for example, Friday, I didn't eat until 9 p.m. I got in the car at 7:30 and I told my friend who was picking me up, I'm like, yo, I'm hangry. I'm just letting you know. But do they deserve that? Do they deserve my emotion? Do they deserve to already be in defense mode? Like we had been looking forward for a whole week to see one another. And when I finally see him, the first thing I say is like, dude, don't even talk. Like figure it out. That's not being a leader. That's not being a leader. So I had to check myself. I apologized, right? Like even before I got my food and I was like, I'm so sorry, you didn't deserve this. Like that's being a leader. And now it's like I've learned to put it in my calendar You need to eat.
Mhm.
So I have literally blocked out half an hour to eat. And it sounds crazy, but that's a leader. That's a leader being like, you need to eat, you need to have your water, mija, and I'm gonna do it too.
Giovanna,
So,
you said something really important though. You're like, I checked
Ceci,
myself.
So she's
passion
showing us the
planner.
Yeah.
calendar.
Or
Yeah.
you're
I
like,
have
I
a
checked
passion
myself.
planner too.
yes, we can be
Yeah.
accountability buddies on like
Yes,
There you
yes,
go.
I wrote it in lunch.
I
you
love
know?
it.
But
Yeah,
see
I
that
mean, we have
that's
to
one of
check
those
out.
being
Yes,
a good leader also means owning up when you
Yeah,
make
but saying I'm
mistakes.
sorry. That was
And saying
deep.
like, you know what, I'm sorry, I messed up. Hey,
yeah,
I made a mistake, because we've had this conversation before. Like, yes, we are human, and we think that certain things are going to be done the same way, but not every single circumstance or situation is the same as the one before. So we
absolutely.
address it as to how we know it, right? But we need to see it with fresh eyes every time. And when we mess up, we have to own up to that and tell our teams and tell our family, our friends. It's like, hey, I messed up. This is what we can do to fix it now. Here's the solution, or thank you for fixing it. Here's how we'll go forward next time. And, please remind them that they're like, when you know that I'm making a mistake, or that something's wrong, feel free to check me as well and like bring it up. Because many times I
Absolutely.
feel that when you are in a position of leadership, or where you are, when you are the leader, you are the boss, no one wants to come up to you and tell you, hey, yo, you messed up, right?
Exactly.
But then when you make yourself available, and you are that person where you're approachable, and someone can be like, hey, can I talk to you about, this situation? I feel that it was handled incorrectly, or you pretty much messed up. And then you're like, oh, no one wants to be told the truth like that, right? Because we're like, it hurts. But at the same time, you're like, I am the leader. I am the person here. Yes. How can I be better? And we're constantly learning and growing. We're not perfect. So we
Yeah.
need to be able to open ourselves up for feedback, criticism, and then when the times when we make mistakes, own up to them and recognize it and apologize. So
And also, like, you don't want to be feeling shitty the whole
Yeah.
time. So, like, the
No.
sooner you can rectify the situation
Mhm.
with both parties, like, the sooner everyone's going to be happy. So, like, right, as soon as I apologized, I was like, yo, my bad. Like, you didn't deserve this. It was like a 5-minute conversation. And so our whole our whole drive to get to the Thai place was like, it was awesome. We were able to catch up, all this other shit, instead of just being en silencio, right? And being
Mhm.
I'm mad.
exactly.
Passive aggressive. Yeah.
But I am very interested because I'm really into right. I am the community builder, so I'm really into partnerships. It gets my motor going. I did want to ask, how is working with your amigas? And we want to know the good, the bad, and the awesome.
Who's going first?
Calladita.
I think we all froze.
Oh my God.
No, I don't want to go first this time. Ceci, te toca
I'll
first.
Yeah,
start first.
Ceci.
And so I just wanted to point something out in the background. I have una pomada for my back pain. So no, don't get any ideas. I just wanted to put it out there. Es para mi dolor de espalda.
Para mi artritis, ¿o qué es para mi artritis?
Para mi arthritis, right?
Girl, it's all good.
So I think, it's very, very fun, but at the same time, we have to, when we're together, right? Like, for example, that weekend that we got together in Palm Springs, we knew we had to record a podcast. And so we had to like carve it out the time, make it happen, because we can easily be with amigas. Even when if it's just the three of us, we can get distracted and be in within the emotions and not do the work that we had scheduled. So we map things out. We have to be disciplined. We have to make it happen, and it's lots of fun. But it's also at the same time, we all know that we have different personalities, and so sometimes those personalities clash. And something that you guys pointed out earlier, like when we know that we, oh my god, man, I did wrong, or I shouldn't have like answered that way, or my tone came out differently, then address it. Like, you know what? I'm recording this audio because I don't want the text message to be misread or misinterpreted. And then also at saying I'm sorry if maybe me pasé de la raya, or I didn't mean it like that, and it came out like that. And I think we're getting better at that. But it's been lots of fun, and I wouldn't have picked other friends outside of Vero and Irene to kind of like work together.
I'm proud of us too. I think that we've grown up a lot in the last 3 years together. Like we've grown a lot as women, we've grown a lot as friends. But that whole friends thing, you know, that line, I personally can blur the line, and I can like get into screaming matches and fight. Like me and Vero can get into it, and then I realized like that wasn't okay. Like I wouldn't act like that in my other business setting with my other business hat. Like why did I treat Vero like that? Like, because then I go to this like sister place with Vero, and like that's not cool. She didn't deserve that either, you know. So I will fuck up basically, you know. And it's like, oh, I gotta take that back. So I work on that, like very specifically, like doing that well, you know, and not well, trying to be good at that. You know what I mean? Trying to be good at the places where I don't communicate well, and understanding it's because we have this friendship. You know, because we have this friendship, it's really easy to blur the line. Like Ceci said, we can maybe blow things off if we weren't going to be strong and like committed to it, right? Because friends, it's easy to be like, I'll forget it. We don't have to do it. But this is a business that we're building. So that holding each other accountable, it's like imagine 3 CEOs/friends. Like, ooh, we had to learn how to hold each other accountable. There's a lot of like infighting in the first year, trying to figure out how to hold each other accountable, how to hold deadlines, how to be fair about the way the business works and the delegation of tasks. And of course, that came with a lot of drama, and also having to be like, but I still love you. I still love you, my friend, you know, and this weird thing that comes with being friends for over 20 years and now trying to run a business together like that. It's like when spouses try to run businesses together, many end in divorce, you know, for a reason, because they can create a really huge business, but they're better as business partners than not married spouses. I don't want to break up with my friends here. So like tooth and nail, we try to make it work.
I agree. It is challenging, but at the same time, it's very rewarding because you're growing in this new aspect of who you are with your friends, right? And they're challenging you. And sometimes you think, well, ya lo sé todo, and we really don't. So it's part of being a leader, right? You're like, oh, you know what? What is that saying? Like good leaders know when to follow, right? And it's one of those things where it's like, you know what, Ceci, you're right. Let's do things this way. And it's like, we don't have all the answers. And that's why I think it's beautiful with Level-Up Latina that we have 3 very unique minds with very unique experiences. But at the end of the day, these 3 strong personalities that some of us might be, you know, we might show or portray ourselves a little bit differently, but we're very strong-minded women, you know, and we want the best for our, not, it doesn't come down to like, for what we want, but what we're building is beyond us in this case, right? And sometimes like keeping our minds on the bigger picture, like our focus on the bigger picture, that's when we're like, okay, all right, well, maybe I need to step back, or maybe just to, you know, not get into the, you know, into these discussions about this, because really what we need to focus is on this. Oops, sorry, I just knocked over my mic. So it is challenging, but it's lovely because our friends, you know, as Ceci and Irene and myself, we went to college together. That's a very, you know, unusual little time period of our lives. You know, it's like, it doesn't take 10 years to open up and finally confess, like, I kissed a girl or whatever, you know, it's like, it's one of those things like, oh my God, you know, like
we're very bonded. We're very bonded.
But it's more like, I was there.
We were there.
Girl.
We have such blackmail material. We have to make this business work. We have to make this business work. We'll blackmail each other.
But, yeah,
what'd you say, Ceci? What'd you say?
Thank God we didn't have social media back then.
Oh yeah. Let's just say we're so grateful, because maybe we're all might, you know, one of us decides to run for office or something. Who knows? But the point is that when you're in those, you know, college is such a unique time of your life, and you open up so much more faster, and you share yourself so openly with other people. Like that's the first time I learned to have close female friends. I did have a few throughout my life through high school, and that I still keep in touch with. But then, you know, we went to college, and we were part of this organization called Hermanas Unidas, and it really built this bond. You know, I'm like, wow, this is what it's like to have friendships and relationships with women. And with that, it really reinforces who we are today, where it's like, okay, my friends are, sometimes we might say things we don't mean. Let's hold back. Let's, you know, make sure, let's be more mindful about things. And at the end of the day, we want the best for the overall. So it's fun, because that's also my, you know, with the pandemic and being sheltered at home, y toda esa onda, you know, we might go out here and there, but it's like, that's my friend time in a sense, my social time. And it really has made it like, I don't want to mess that up, because it's very important to me. It's important to them, and it's important overall to what we are building. And we owe it to those women to be better.
So basically what I'm hearing is, for the sake of the rest of us Latinas, you ladies will stay friends and business partners.
Yes.
Yes, exactly.
We need to do a show like every year just
Yeah.
to like make
Yes.
sure. And
You're
if
holding us
it's not
accountable.
happening, then we'll bring a therapist. Like
Yeah.
we'll do an
Yes.
intervention.
There
Okay,
you go.
we got
Yeah.
it.
Mediation.
We'll call it the Amiga check-in
There you
episode.
go.
There you
Yes.
go.
Checking and
We're
honing in.
game.
I
Yes.
love it.
Yes. Love it.
Ladies, before we let you go, we love asking what are our guests reading. It can be, fiction, nonfiction, professional. Let us know what is on the list. I'm actually going to take note because I do write it within our community.
Okay.
That
I
is-
actually. Oh, sorry. That's a great idea. Because Irene, you want?
No, go for it.
I just finished Radical Candor by Kim Scott, and it was recommended by a good friend after I had talked about it, just like a challenging situation with, working with my two friends. And she's like, you know what? You want to approach these relationships are valuable to you. You care about them, and make sure that the way you address your team, which in this case are your two good friends and they're your business partners and your co-founders of this great organization, read this book and really like reflect on how you want to show up for them. So I read Radical Candor, Kim Scott. It's great. I recommend it to everyone.
I had my book close and then I don't know what I did with it, but I'm reading right now Leaders Eat Last by Simon Sinek, and he's the one that wrote Start With Why, and he's incredible. He has the whole TED Talk, and that book's really good. And my staff actually wanted to read a book because we used to do that before, and they're like, we should bring back reading a book together. So they picked that book, and I really enjoyed it. I'm actually listening to the audio, but I like to pick up the actual book and sometimes sit and read it. But two books that I love to recommend, and I think they're perfect for this topic on perfectionism, would be The Four Agreements, Don Miguel Ruiz. Right? That's a perfect book, I think, in terms of just like being your best self and like letting go of perfectionism. And it gives you such great tools, the 4 tips of the 4 agreements. And then for teams, business partners, gosh, really anybody in any kind of business, you don't have to be the leader necessarily. The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team by Patrick Leoncelli. Everything he writes is good, but 5 Dysfunctions of a Team is fantastic. We had a whole business retreat on this a few years back, and it really helped my staff get to a really great place. It's kind of like what Vero said about being approachable and being able to like tell your boss the tough things and vice versa, not having fake harmony. And this book really focuses on that. So again, for perfectionism, like a team that looks like they have it all together, but don't truly, they're not really succeeding. They're not growing. They're just not able to have really tough conversations, and that's one dysfunction. So there's 5 in this book, and it's incredible, and it really helps you bring together great teams and get the wrong people off the bus and the right people on the bus, because teams are also really about dynamic and structure and how to, as a leader, really make sure that you're not just dragging along people that don't want to be there or aren't bringing positive things or they're negative. And so this book really sets the tone, so if people can read it with their staff, even better, bonus points. But 5 Dysfunctions of a Team is really good.
I love it. Anything around psychological safety in the workplace is something that everyone should be reading about. Love it. How about you, Ceci?
Oh, sorry, I was muted. I also read the 4 Agreements just this year, and I really liked it. I actually read it. I read it in Spanish, thinking that it had been written in Spanish, but it wasn't. It was written originally in English, and then it was translated. But anyway, I really liked it, and then I made sure that I wrote the 4 Agreements and any other ideas around it within my journal. So I like to look back at it whenever I'm writing into the journal. And then the other one that I do a lot of audio books. That's what I have time for during my walks or runs. And so I did The Likeability Trap by Elisa Menendez. If you guys haven't
awesome.
listened or heard it, yes, it's so cool. I love the stories and the women that she interviews. It's just, it's really relatable. It's really relatable. So I really enjoyed it, and I think I'm gonna listen to it again just because I liked it so much.
Yeah, it's one of those really good audiobooks that it's like light enough that you can listen to while you're doing many things, but it's deep enough that stops you. Like you está cocinando, and it's like, oh,
Sí.
okay. Okay, I got you. Yeah.
She's just a great author and communicator too. Like she's incredible. I think it just makes it work.
There's one more book that I always keep by my bedside that I've had that a friend gave me maybe like 6 years ago. And it's called The Greatest Salesman in the World by O.G. Mandino. And it's very philosophical, and people think it's only about sales, but I feel it really helps you just create a new habit and the way you interact with people. One of the things he talks about is love. How when you interact with someone, interact with them with love, like giving them like the thinking in your mind, like, I love you, like not sick wise, okay, like nothing like that, but it's very like interacting with people with love, because when you show up with people that you love, you really show up meaningful, mindful and caring, and that person's going to feel that, and it's going to be allow for more people, for you to be open communication we talked about, and just makes whatever transaction you want to call it or your interaction feel more of an interaction instead of a transaction. So it's a great book. It helps with, in every aspect of your life, you can use the 4 things he talks about. And, you read each part of the book for 30 days. So you repeat it para que se te quede metido en la mente.
Las malas ahí.
Aunque quieras o no quieras, vas a aprender. So this little book is great to have like on my bedside. Like today, I'm going to read this one again. And it's good to just remind yourself all those things. So OG Mandino, I call him OG, but it's Og Mandino, just because I really think he's a gangster with this book, for real.
That's awesome.
I love it. Irene, what was the one you had said? It was Leaders
Eat Last by
Eat.
Simon Sinek. Leaders
Got
Eat
it.
Last.
Okay.
And then of course he wrote Start With Why.
Awesome. Got it.
So, where can our listeners learn more about what you do?
All right, we're like giving each other googly eyes to see who goes
Yeah.
next. So our listeners can find us online. We are really active on Instagram and Facebook. At Level-Up Latina is our handle. And you can find our website, which is simply leveluplatina.com, to get more information on our Guilt-Free Squad, which is our community of women that come together and do this kind of work together. Amazing workshops, amazing stuff happening behind the scenes in our private chat. I mean, it's a really, really great group of women. So get that information at leveluplatina.com. Also, our assessments. We're coaches, true and true. It's what we do above all. We really want to transform lives. So our coaching is the best aspect of our work. We obviously mentioned our podcast a little bit earlier. So find our podcast, the Level Up Latina podcast, across platforms. But that's like surface coaching. And that's more of this. And that's your friends. And that's kind of talking about these concepts. But really that one-on-one coaching that we do, you can find out all about it online and sign up for an assessment. The assessment's always free. And you'll fall in love with us. You'll fall in love with this work. And the hope is that you transform. So thanks for giving us a chance to talk about where they can find us.
Yay, of course. Thank you so much for joining us. We are so excited about this episode. Thank you for the book recommendations, for the leadership, entrepreneurship, collaboration, life advice, and support today. And don't forget, leveluplatina.com to work with Irene, Vero, and Ceci. And don't forget to join the Making Leader Moves community, the podcast community on Facebook. And if you have questions, send your questions to makingleadermoves@gmail.com. Thank you again for joining us. And we'll schedule the check-in in
You
a
got
year.
it. You got it.
Yes.
Sign me up. I'm ready.
We're going to be bigger and better than ever. Thank you. We're so proud of this organization that you're building. Thank you for bringing this to our community. Thank you.
Yes, thank you,
Awesome.
ladies.
Thank you,
Yay.
ladies.
Que viva la mujer.
Yes.
Que se te resbale, Ceci, que se te resbale.
Eso.